All right, guys, I have one more clip here from the Sam Harris and Constantine interview on impact theory. Tom and Blues asking them about how to protect democracy and capitalism. And Constantine and Sam Harris have a couple of good ideas here. Let's go ahead and listen to them. I'm going to go ahead and discuss if there's any logical fallacies live. Let's jump in.
Is routine. So the idea, and this is why our system works. This isn't like, oh, it's nice that billionaires can keep that. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is our system works because the incentive structure works. The incentive structure in Russia or in China is not to create things of value to other people and therefore become rich, as you have done. It is to serve the system, to serve the people above you, to serve the people above you in the hierarchy, in their corrupt needs. If you do that, you will become rich in Russia, or you will retain your wealth in Russia. And if you fail to do that, you will cease to be rich in Russia. So the reason our system works is because we have created incentive structures that take us forward, that mean that talented, inventive, creative, driven, passionate, smart people can profit from that talent, can profit from their own hard work and retain what they create. The same is true on almost every level. I mean, our technological progress, this is a self-evident thing that smart people don't talk about, but I feel like sometimes it needs explaining. The reason the West is so technologically superior is not disconnected from its culture of freedom of the individual. I mean, this should be obvious to people, but for some reason we don't talk about it nearly enough. The reason we are the most technically advanced society in the world and in the history of the world is partly because we allow people to pursue their curious interest and to profit from them if they create something of value to other people. So I think sometimes when we talk about this idea of individual freedom, we talk about them in a kind of moral sense, like, oh, it's good, it's obviously good, it's obviously good for people to be free. Well, actually, yes, and also there are some very practical consequences of that freedom that are the reason we are where we are. So that's just a little bit of why I think the West is unique and it's worth protecting. And, you know, we've used the word experiment a lot, talking about communism and others. We should be honest. Liberal democracy is an experiment, and a very recent one.
So here's my problem with this claim is trying to paint every other system that's not crony capitalism as the devil is probably a mistake. How do you know that? Maybe it's true that in Russia, because they are a communist system, that they don't create innovation. But maybe because they are a communist system, they have innovation because all these social nets that are available allows people to not have to go and work for the man to survive and to live. Gives them a lot more free time to create their own innovations and basically find their own purpose in life and build that purpose themselves. How can you actually claim that just because it's communism and you start linking it to the royalty? The communism is not about royalty. Communism is about the working class and how it affects the working class. The lowest of all of people. They're actually benefiting from communism. And yeah, that's true. We don't have billionaires in communism because you don't have an incentive to be a billionaire because everyone's already living a great life. So it's true. But, and I agree with you, there are some things that you're going to lose from capitalism, which is like the incentives to innovate. But it seems to me that you will gain something else. You will gain either the same level of innovation, or at least you will gain some kind of higher quality of life, some kind of higher prosperness, some kind of more purpose-driven community that can actually allow for more greatness, for more discovery. So it's actually not clear to me that communist societies just automatically falter and die out. Also, this is not to say that capitalism is bad. I really like the idea of capitalism. I think capitalism with a little bit of communism, like a social net, but the ability to climb up as far as you want, but the social net cannot be affected. I think that's the perfect system. I think it's a combination between different economical systems and financial systems. That's the best system, is usually a combination of multiple systems. And so the idea that I'm against is crony capitalism, where only the top of the top capitalists get all the social networks and all the social benefits, like Like when they give out the PPP loans, they only give it out to the biggest companies. That's what I'm talking about. And they give them their grants for the biggest companies. That's what I'm talking about. That crony capitalism that only gives socialism to the top of the top, and they don't offer any socialism or any benefits or any kind of help to the younger, smaller people. That's the crony capitalism that we should be against. But capitalism, actually, I do agree with Constantine. It's a pretty great system. I like the free market system. I think it's the best system available, this free market system. But I do see a lot of problems with it. I see the ability for basically the guy with the biggest amounts of, the biggest pockets to really take over that system very easily. Whereas in communism, it's very hard for you to take over a system, even if you have pockets, because people are not really worried about money. The incentive is not money or monetary gain. The incentive is not financial gain. The incentive is just to better your quality of life. That's where the incentive is. So there's two big differences. I think the best thing to do is to combine them together. So anybody that says, oh, this system is trash and this system is better, automatically, without like trying to figure out if there's a hybrid system that combines both these economical systems together, because both of these systems have flourishing countries that work in the, like communism has flourishing China, and capitalism has flourishing America and the West. So if you combine something in the middle, I think that's the perfect system.
Well, it's also a matter of just consistency. I mean, I think the most effective way of arguing against these extreme positions is to show their internal inconsistencies and you know, the reductio ad absurdum. So, I mean, so on the left, you take the woke left, they're highly sensitized toward around variables like racism and homophobia and political inequality between men and women, say, right? So you take a feminist activist who is all in for Palestine, not especially disposed to think about who Hamas really is, right? And yet can effortlessly see that she's against a white supremacist theocratic Nazi cult, right? If these were white Christian nationalist theocrat Nazis who thought women should stay, in the house as breeders and just baking and having kids, and that and they express nothing but xenophobia and anti-Semitism and white supremacy, that's all instantly recognizable as evil, and yet you can connect all of those dots for Hamas or any other jihadist or even Islamist organization, and that's exactly who they are. It's exactly who the Muslim Brotherhood is, right? It's exactly some of these groups that are actually funding Middle East studies departments at Georgetown and Princeton. That's who these guys are, right? So the left should be able to see the internal inconsistency. They should be able to see that if they're for women's rights, they're against 98% of girls in Somalia getting clitorectomies, right?
Whoa.
Or women in Iran deciding to take off the veil and being thrown into prison and tortured and raped and even killed for having dared to show their hair, right? And the most obscene distortions of moral intuition here can be seen in moments like when Linda Sarsour, this hijabi theocrat bully, gets picked as one of the women to anchor the Women's March, right? She's wearing, Shepard Fairey does a hijabi poster, and the very symbol of essentially gender apartheid throughout the Muslim world is co-opted as a symbol of women's empowerment in the West, right? This is, it's just a complete nullification of moral intelligence and the very real solidarity that should be obvious between women who care about their rights in the West and the women they ostensibly care about in the Muslim world who are being thrown in prison for taking the hijab off. I mean, it's just the confusion is so obvious. It's so right on the surface. Eventually, people will be embarrassed by this. I mean, insofar as culture is incapable of improving itself, and we know it is, there's going to come a time when all these girls from Barnard and Columbia and Brandeis and all these liberal institutions are going to be embarrassed to look back at how they just got confused about the valence of religious symbols, who their friends were, who their enemies were at moment. I mean, it's just, it is as upside down as anything awful in our racist past, and it has the additional variable of being masochistic. I mean, it's like, at least with old school racist outgroup hatred, it was, you know, your attack, you know, the victims are others, but what's happened in the West, I mean, to take another example from the UK, I mean, like the Rotherham scandal, right, where you have literally, you know, over 1,000 English girls, you know, some of whom are 12 years old, getting raped by mostly Pakistani men, and no one is doing anything about it because everyone's afraid to be called racist. So literally, the parents would come into the police station and say, "My daughter was just raped, gang."
All right, guys, that's it for me. I'm not gonna let this guy just keep spewing out these. Basically, what he's doing is he's just giving you these examples of these over-exaggerated situations, one-offs. And this is supposed to change your whole idea on the whole system. It's impossible to do that because of one fringe case that you haven't even explained or exposed the full story about. So it's very bad what Sam Harris has been doing here. It's absolutely unintellectual, trying to change your mind, basically propagandizing you using strawman arguments, using strawman example, literally strawmanning the example and then using it to try to propagandize you, to see how you're a hateful person, because how only hateful people would support an ideology that's this hateful to its own constituents. So you need to be very careful. I'm not going to let him spew out any hate, any more lies either. But very interesting that these are supposedly your intellectuals. They're genocidal maniacs filled with strawman arguments and propaganda, and their literal job, at least Constantine did much better. But Sam Harris's literal job here was to just propagandize you using new information. I mean, every time I would find a clip for him, it just is him talking. It's just him talking. So anyways, let's just go ahead and interested in your opinions, guys. What do you think about this? Do you actually believe Sam Harris here, or are you just getting propagandized by him?